After successfully taking control of Gyeongcheon, Gangpyeong, and Gaeseong Bridge, the Republic of Korea Army began to gradually encircle Gaeseong. The Republic of Korea Army's full-scale movement to capture Gaeseong had begun. The 7th and 1st Corps secured Gyeongcheon using the 2nd Division's airborne operation, then the 2nd advanced south to control Songaksan. The 8th Division entered Gangpyeong without resistance and moved down from the northeast. The encirclement around Gaeseong was now complete. All that remained was a full-scale breakthrough toward Gaeseong. Securing Songaksan was crucial for advancing to Gaeseong. The 488-meter mountain north of Gaeseong offers a strategic view of downtown Gaeseong. Before the Korean War, Songaksan was on the 38th parallel and served as a confrontation point between South Korea and North Korea. Since Songaksan's summit was in North Korea, the South Korean army faced heavy losses there. Songaksan was also where the hero Yukdan Si-byung-sa emerged. After the 2nd Division was airlifted to Gyeongcheon, the North Korean army quickly built trenches and defenses where only observation posts had been before. Once the 2nd Division took Songaksan, the fight for Gaeseong City was basically decided. The North Korean army and Chinese volunteers had to thin their troops along the wider front, weakening their defense. The K-2 tank column was advancing toward Gaeseong when suddenly an anti-tank missile was launched from a North Korean position fortified in Gaeseong. It was Chinese-made. The anti-tank missile hit the K-2 tank directly, and flames erupted afterward. The K-2 tank crew was initially flustered but quickly responded. The tank's active protection system intercepted the anti-tank missile. In the fierce Gaeseong battle, this system proved highly effective. This active protection system could boost defense far more than just adding traditional armor. It can theoretically block almost any incoming threat, including tank shells, but so far it's only been used to intercept chemical energy rounds like RPGs or anti-tank missiles. Despite repeated rocket-propelled grenade attacks by the North Korean military, the K-2 Hyukbyo tank intercepted them all with its active protection system. The South Korean military was slowly making progress. Tanks and armored vehicles deployed smoke grenades as they advanced. Then infantry disembarked before entering the city to fight in urban combat. With good coordination, tanks and armored vehicles are highly effective in urban warfare. The main gun of this armored vehicle alone had already killed about 50 North Korean soldiers. Infantry used anti-tank weapons to eliminate enemies, while tanks gave strong fire support and shielded them. This made the combined arms operation effective. However, despite all this, casualties continued to occur. The North Korean army and Chinese volunteers desperately resisted to block entry into Gaeseong, doing everything possible to delay. A Chinese volunteer sniper was targeting South Korean supply vehicles on the road, so the enemy sniper had to be dealt with first. The South Korean army succeeded in locating the sniper by sending a drone, and then the K-808 armored vehicle fired its main gun and completely wiped out the sniper. As the South Korean army fought for their lives every day, they gradually improved. Now, by actively using drones to locate enemy positions, they were pushing forward with overwhelming firepower. With the South Korean army actively utilizing drones, the North Korean army and Chinese volunteers were clearly being pushed back. When the K-808 armored vehicle stopped, infantry quickly exited and rushed toward enemy positions. Tanks and armored vehicles advanced slowly, supporting the infantry. Once disorganized, they now fought skillfully. The infantry swiftly took out North Korean troops with anti-tank weapons, allowing tanks and armored vehicles to move forward safely. A North Korean soldier tried to fire a rocket-propelled grenade from a rooftop, but our soldier shot him with a K2C1 rifle, causing the rocket-propelled grenade to hit a building. They trusted each other and advanced little by little. The North Korean soldiers fought back, firing machine guns and mortars at our troops. Explosions erupted as both sides ran, shot, and dodged during the ongoing battle. Of course, there were also some casualties among our troops in the Gaeseong church area. The North Korean soldiers fired anti-tank missiles recklessly, and one of our tanks was destroyed. The advance continued as casualties rose. The task force previously docked in Jeju Island for an operation in Gaeseong also moved to the West Sea. Their initial mission included protecting maritime routes, preparing for North Korean threats, maintaining readiness, and supporting foreign policies like the Cheonghae unit deployment. But due to circumstances, they shifted to the West Sea to support the Western Front. The task force included all 6 Cheongmugong-yi Sunshin class and all 3 Sejong the Great class destroyers, except for the 3 Gwangaeto the Great class destroyers in the reserve fleet. This is the Republic of Korea Navy's main force, overpowering Korea's 1st, 2nd, and 3rd fleets heavily armed. Their firepower was incredible. Gaeseong was devastated by Haesong-2 cruise missiles, and Jongjo the Great class destroyers were sent to ensure its destruction. The task force commander planned full naval fire support. They fired cruise missiles at areas with North Korean, Chinese, and volunteer force concentrations. The Air Force's KF-21 jets were relentlessly bombing, as both the Air Force and Navy planned to flatten Gaeseong with a missile barrage. However, as a result, there were also unfortunate incidents where precious national heritage sites in Gaeseong were being destroyed. For example, North Korea set up mortar positions at Gaeseong Seongyungwan and started firing mortars, which led to a situation where Gaeseong Seongyungwan had to be destroyed. Unfortunate events were happening one after another. Is this Songaksan? The 2nd Division soldiers advanced slowly, looking tense. As an airborne unit, the 2nd Division couldn't bring K-2 tanks or K-808 armored vehicles. They used air power and infantry to secure Songaksan because it was mountainous. The 2nd Division decided these forces were sufficient, so the battle for Songaksan started. Fortunately, the North Korean and Chinese volunteer forces were caught off guard and couldn't set up many defensive structures on Songaksan, which was a big problem for them. Because of that, we were able to advance to the entrance of Songaksan without any resistance. Securing Songaksan and Gaeseong was the 2nd Division's top priority. Because they had advanced too far north, they couldn't predict when more North Korean reinforcements would arrive. That's why the 201st Rapid Response Brigade of the 2nd Division was assigned the mission to secure Songaksan, while the 203rd Rapid Response Brigade served as the reserve force. This led to the battle for Songaksan. The fighting at Songaksan was quite fierce. Although the defending force was only about the size of a battalion, they did everything they could to hold on to Songaksan. With few defensive structures, some climbed trees to snipe from above. From the office, they repeatedly lured in the Republic of Korea Army and attacked. The 201st Rapid Response Brigade advanced, using smoke grenades. Even after dark, the brigade kept fighting. They used their night vision goggles to attack the North Korean forces, but the night vision goggles weren't very useful. Both North and South Korean forces fired constant illumination rounds, making the night sky as bright as day. Both North and South Korean forces kept firing shells over the mountain, causing repeated flashes in the sky. The 201st Rapid Response Brigade asked the 1st and 7th Corps to fire extended-range rockets at Songaksan. UAVs and drones quickly identified North Korean positions before the attack. The South Korean military's UAVs quickly detected and destroyed the mortar positions on Songaksan. But in the end, every war is only finished when the infantry goes in and plants the flag. Despite heavy losses from South Korean artillery and drone strikes on Songaksan, the North Korean and Chinese forces continued to resist. The North Korean army hid in Songaksan bunkers, using guerrilla tactics against South Korean troops until the 201st Rapid Response Brigade cleared them out. As a result, the casualties kept increasing. In the midst of this situation, heavy rain started pouring down in Kaesong, a torrential downpour. The reconnaissance battalion, using night vision goggles, secretly infiltrated Songaksan and nearby areas through North Korean army positions. They focused all firepower, including sultans and grenade launchers, on one spot, overwhelming the enemy. The battle was brutal. The dead North Korean soldiers' bodies rotted in the rain, and each shell blast sent red blood seeping into the mud. The Battle of Songaksan raged fiercely throughout the night. The mobile fleet was the Korean Navy's strongest, but it lacked effective anti-submarine warfare capabilities. The 5,500-ton and 10,600-ton Aegis destroyers use coastal anti-submarine and patrol ship equipment like the Gwangaeto the Great class, relying on anti-submarine helicopters and land-based patrol aircraft for support. This is also true for other countries' navies. Helicopters on board are smaller and less capable than those of other classes. Both military and civilian circles have argued for stronger anti-submarine abilities in the fleet, but attempts to improve this were always cancelled. Eventually, the issue came to a head. On a dark night, the Korean Navy's Sejong the Great class destroyer was patrolling the West Sea. At that time, the North Korean military attacked the Sejong the Great class destroyer with a submarine and launched a torpedo. Fortunately, the Sejong the Great class destroyer detected it quickly and made an emergency evasive maneuver. The ship made a sharp turn and narrowly avoided the torpedo. However, since several torpedoes were fired, one of them ended up hitting the ship. As a result, the Sejong the Great class destroyer was struck by a torpedo and flooding occurred in the engine room. A North Korean Kilo class submarine attacked a South Korean Navy ship around 3 a.m. The Sejong the Great class destroyer began listing as black smoke rose from the engine room. Inside, an engine room flooding warning repeatedly flashed on the display. After news of the Sejong the Great class destroyer, the Navy quickly sent anti-submarine forces to stop further North Korean attacks. Though the destroyer was badly damaged, it was rushed to port for repairs, which was a relief. However, the North Korean military continued its attacks, actively deploying previously hidden submarines. There were also cases where they attacked fishing boats and merchant ships. The North Korean military ruthlessly attacked these vessels, and some fishing boats and merchant ships were even split in two. Of course, the South Korean Navy's ships continued to be attacked as well. As fishing boats and merchant ships kept suffering damage, civilian casualties kept increasing. Eventually, the North Korean Navy even went so far as to attack major ports like Incheon. The South Korean Navy couldn't operate unless North Korean submarines were eliminated. Because of this, the South Korean Navy had no choice but to temporarily set aside fire support for Gaeseong and prioritize searching for North Korean submarines. They began to thoroughly search for North Korean submarines, using all the patrol aircraft and anti-submarine aircraft they had. The Republic of Korea Navy started West Sea underwater searches using P-8 Poseidon patrol aircraft. The Republic of Korea Navy hunted North Korean submarines using patrol and anti-submarine aircraft to locate them and drop depth charges, splitting and sinking the subs. North Korean submarines were sunk one after another, and the seawater eruptions from the explosions were spectacular. It was like a whale spouting water, or rather, like more than 5 whales spouting at once, with seawater shooting up into the air. North Korea's submarine forces were being destroyed one by one. During this, Seijo Seon, whose group was still forming, gave South Korea information that the submarines were concentrated in 3 locations. Previously, North Korean submarine locations couldn't be found by satellites, but Seijo Seon's information revealed their positions. North Korea had created cave mooring sites in various places, and they were hiding their submarines there to avoid satellite detection. Previously, South Korea had identified and destroyed all known cave mooring sites using missiles, but there were 3 more cave mooring sites that South Korea hadn't known about. That's why North Korea's submarine forces were still active. South Korea decided to eliminate the cave mooring sites all at once to wipe out North Korea's submarine forces. They began mobilizing all available assets heading to the cave mooring sites. Missiles were continuously launched, and the mooring sites were completely destroyed one after another. The hidden North Korean submarines were also destroyed. The South Korean Navy succeeded in annihilating the enemy submarine forces, but they also suffered significant damage. The Navy took considerable losses, with about 2 escort ships being hit by torpedoes. Fortunately, they did not sink. The damaged naval vessels needed repairs, giving South Korea a chance to showcase its advanced manufacturing and shipbuilding industries. The ships were repaired rapidly. The division's infantry advanced towards Songaksan and Kaesong, attacking the mountain without equipment, relying mainly on infantry and some helicopter support for mountain warfare. The 201st Rapid Response Brigade soldiers swiftly climbed the ridge, using trees and rocks for cover. North Korean forces fiercely resisted from prepared trenches, using machine guns against South Korean troops. The 201st Rapid Response Brigade advanced slowly, aided by grenade launchers, mortars, and air support, reaching halfway up the mountain. North Korean forces held strong, and the narrow Songaksan Ridge made attacking difficult. Soldiers fought hand-to-hand with bayonets in trenches and on the ridge, with occasional appearances by Chinese volunteers. Initially, 1 infantry battalion defended, but as North Korean forces realized losing Songaksan meant losing Gaeseong, they added 2 more battalions and 200 Chinese volunteers. Both South and North Korea seemed fully committed to the Battle of Songaksan. As it began to rain, the division's infantry used the downpour to secretly approach enemy positions. A squadron of South Korean drones launched suicide attacks on North Korean positions, determined to seize Songaksan. Controlling Songaksan would give a clear view of Gaeseong. The South Korean army, once disorganized, had greatly improved. Now they factored in the environment and used UAVs and drones to shape tactics and strategies. It was a stark change. The North Korean army rapidly adopted tactics seen in the Ukraine war. Intense hand-to-hand combat broke out, both sides cursing and attacking each other with knives and rifle butts. Around the time the fierce battle at Songaksan was taking place, a problem arose. The 201st Rapid Response Brigade used so many shells and so much ammunition in the battle at Songaksan that they started to run out of ammo. In order to supply the location where the 2nd Division was stationed, they had to go all the way around Kaesong, which made the supply line longer and made it difficult to deliver supplies and military goods. To make things worse, it began to rain, forcing them to drive on North Korea's unpaved roads. Also, due to mortar attacks by the North Korean army, supply vehicles and cooks were attacked, so there were cases where food couldn't be delivered. In some places, soldiers had to fight without even having a proper meal. The 201st Rapid Response Brigade continued fighting while conserving ammunition and supplies, even though they were running low. However, the environment was not helping at all. The heavy rain was pouring down fiercely, causing malfunctions in some of the equipment. Rifles sometimes became wet and muddy during hand-to-hand combat, causing malfunctions. Soldiers occasionally had to use them like bolt-action guns. Mortar shells sometimes failed to detonate, sharply reducing the 201st Rapid Response Brigade's combat effectiveness. It again highlighted the importance of military logistics. The 2nd Division deployed the 203rd Rapid Response Brigade previously in reserve as its main force to counter reinforced North Korean troops. This was likely inevitable since the 201st Brigade was low on ammunition and losing effectiveness. The 203rd Rapid Response Brigade guarded the rear, but was still pushed towards Songaksan. The 2nd Division could only hope North Korean forces wouldn't attack from behind, as that would mean being surrounded. They had taken a gamble. With 2 brigades attacking Songaksan at once, North Korean forces had to retreat before the South Korean offensive. They eventually captured Songaksan. Afterward, the 2nd Division fortified the mountain and started recovering. Only then did they realize the full extent of their losses. With 321 dead, 750 wounded, and 34 missing, reorganizing would take time. One company lost so many troops that a whole platoon was wiped out. Is the 2nd Division an engineering unit? They're tougher and stronger than infantry from other divisions, with greater combat capability. However, using them like regular infantry means recovery will take significant time and resources. Did they act this way because they needed to quickly recapture Gaeseong? The 2nd Division captured Songaksan, causing 1,247 North Korean deaths and 322 prisoners. The Chinese Volunteer Army lost 153 and had 48 captured. The 2nd Division fully occupied and fortified Songaksan with trenches and mortar positions to block breakthroughs. From Songaksan, downtown Gaeseong was in direct view, and mortar fire from there could strike North Korea's key positions, inflicting major damage on their forces. It kept raining, and now only the final battle to recapture Gaeseong remained. All the churches in Gaeseong had been secured, and Songaksan was under control as well. All that was left was to occupy the city center of Gaeseong.
A war-torn land crushed by boots, buried in dust, yet hope still takes your hand, though your petals are torn and stained. You will. Through pain, the world may burn and fall apart, but you?